From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, JOCO Community Radio.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to JOCO Community Radio.
Well, good afternoon, Johnson County. Welcome back to today's episode of Let Freedom Ring. I'm your host, Jake Wernette. As always, it's a blessing and wonderful to see everybody, to be able to speak to everybody. Get everything set up here real quick. Well, I had initially thought today was going to be an interview episode, but I myself, being so caught up with catching up with everything after post-elections, gave myself the wrong day. So pardon today if you expected a big expose or something. I figured we're going to do something that I don't normally do, and that's give me a chance to talk to you, the American people, my fellow Texans, my fellow citizens. Before we get started, I'd like to get back to doing a quote of the day. This comes from Emperor Marcus Aurelius of Rome. It's from his book 8, number 32. You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action, and be satisfied if each one achieves its goal as far as it can. No one can keep that from happening, but there are external obstacles, not to behave with justice, self control, and good sense. Well, but perhaps to some more concrete action. If you accept the obstacles and work with what you're given, an alternative will present itself, another piece of what you're trying to assemble action by action. I think that fits the theme of today's episode at large. I want to do a reflection from what I had seen, me getting involved, having so many people on the show. We've had more people on here than we've ever had. The first episode that we had done was called God's Children Are Not for Sale, where we first reflected on the human trafficking and sale of minors and children, as well as women, into sex trafficking. We reviewed the movie uh, Sound of Freedom. That was our first mega series that we did on this show. And while this is going to be a reflection on the election, I also want to reflect on this almost coming up. I don't know exactly what day it was, but we'll just go ahead and reflect on a year of being a member of this station and having this show up for a year. We are blessed. We are blessed to have our new sponsor, Lone Star Patriots. Visit them at lonestarpatriots.com. Look at their Facebook group. They are a tremendous patriotic organization of conservatives and common sense policy. Here in the local area, Johnson County, Tarrant County, they look for candidates. They have candidate forums. Get involved if you can. I'm on their board of directors. They're a tremendous, outstanding group. So a year has gone by with this show, and a year has gone by where we've done nothing but tried to inform our citizens, try to expose them to who is running, who is being elected, who has been elected, and try and have that discussion where we lay out the information, we lay out these candidates, and we allow our citizens to see who is governing them, who is given the choice to govern them, and the choices that lie in the hands of our citizens, which is the most fundamental and profound principle of this country that has never existed in the form that we have it enshrined in our Constitution. No other country has had that opportunity for 100% of its history. And we in this country are in danger of losing it forever. I want to reflect first on the experiences that I've had, the candidates that we've had on here. I might not get to them all, but I want to thank them for having the time and the opportunity to join me in discussing politics, discussing policy for the sake of our fellow citizens, which I think is another profound aspect of free enterprise and freedom of the press that we rarely see in this country. The goal of this show has always been to inform, to inspire, and to encourage our citizens to take part in the Republican principles of representative government, of electing our officials, and standing up for our Constitution. There were moments in this show, to reflect foremost, where we had put endorsements, we had put the privilege of myself as a member of the press, as a member of this community, over truly informing the citizens. And for that, I am sorry. I apologize if it has ever come off that my recollection for what is good for our citizens has overshadowed the foremost principle of the Republican principle of representative government, and that is you, the American voter, you, the people, deciding who you want in office. I've had the chance to work with, to have on, to be friends with some of the greatest minds that I've had the chance to meet in my lifetime. Many of you will reflect that we've had Matthew Lucci on here dozens of times. Always a wonderful voice, always somebody that is passionate for serving his citizens. somebody that has inspired me to do a lot better. I had been involved with him for about a year as his communications director, somebody who worked with the media, somebody who worked to set up events. And regardless of what people thought of him, regardless of what people saw, there's an inspiration for us as young people to get involved. All of his staff were people all under the age of 25, with the exception of his treasurer. All young people got involved. There were two or three full time employees, myself, Sean Goins, and one or two other students that got involved with this campaign. It gave me a chance to look inside the political landscape of this county, this district, as I had never seen it before. I got to see the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly of not only congressional campaigns, but also the people that vote in congressional campaigns. This might come off condescending. I don't intend on it being that way. But the simple things showed me the way that our country is, why it operates the way it does, and why we are inhibited from doing better. And we like to say it's big money. We like to say it's the big donors. We like to say all this stuff that the media constantly creates repetition within our souls and our minds. But being somebody who sat out and was a poll watcher, somebody who greeted at the polls many times, I was probably at 50 different polling locations across the district, across the county. I had the chance, the privilege to meet with tens of thousands of voters in that time, to shake hands, to talk to people, not even just as a director on Matthew Lucci's campaign, but as somebody who was interested in learning about politics, why people vote, why people think the way that they do. And I would probably say about 20% of people took pamphlets. Now, we have the absolute choice in this country to do so, but what had stuck with me the most was we can go on the media, we can go on who's currently in office, we can look at who has claims they have gotten the most done, but if we never take the time to learn who is opposing that person, who is running against them, we never have the full picture of what is going on inside of our representative republic. It And you're not supposed to let things get under your skin in politics. I'm very prone to allowing things to. It was very depressing, to say the least, to see so many people not wanting to take 5 seconds out of their day to read a flyer, to look at something. We have the freedom to choose whether to take that literature or not, but we also have the freedom to give out that literature. And to see so many wonderful candidates this election that didn't make it to the runoff, that didn't make it to things. A big part of it, I would have to say, came from people refusing to look at their side, refusing to look at things. I was out handing out literature for James Buford. He has come on here two or three times. Outstanding man. But we as American citizens, the greatest threat to tyranny is an informed and well educated citizenry. I believe it was either James Madison or Thomas Jefferson that had uttered those words 250 or so odd years ago. But we as a people, I encourage you, if somebody is out handing out literature, take it, read it. When we're walking, we might as well have something to look at. We as a species have gotten so dependent on our phones, reading the recommendation lists, that we lose sight of the person that is trying to shake our hand, the person that is trying to help inform us of a well-educated decision as a voter. I think that was something that was profound, that stuck out to me. Another thing was just how hard people are willing to work to better this country. There were many outstanding candidates who I've had the pleasure of having on this show that gave me an insight like no other into the establishment and how the establishment will always fight back. when it's poked with a stick. Just this morning, I saw a post of a town in Michigan. The townspeople were arguing over their town approving a Chinese battery factory from coming in and taking up, I believe it was something about 100 acres. I could be wrong. Our own national enemies coming in and building things, having the tap into the grid, being able to look at the laborers, look at social security numbers, look at all these things. The city in Michigan approved that. What the citizens did was they hired a locksmith to come in and change all the deadbolts, change every lock in the building. And he came in and did it in the close of night. And when the city woke up the next day, there were hundreds of citizens packed into the council chambers. They had ousted their entire city council and their mayor for approving our national enemy from coming in and building a factory on their own soil. I say that's pretty exceptional. And I would argue that some of the candidates had worked extremely hard to those same ends to rid the establishment, to rout out corruption. Many of you, I don't have to even say his name. Many of you remember that there was one specific candidate that had said there is no corruption in Johnson or Somerville County. If there was, I wasn't informed of it. His opponent, Tim Good, who came in here and I've had the privilege of sitting down and talking to, won the election for district attorney. There are those in the establishment, there are those who have unwittingly or unknowingly become members of the establishment. There are those who unknowingly have sold out their citizens for being reelected, for getting that paycheck. I have seen that many times across our district, across this state, across our city. There are those who continuously get reelected because they think they're endowed, they're entitled to that position, and they're not. This election has not only shown me the establishment's face, but the face of our own citizens as well. And I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to put nice little unicorn and rainbow sprinkles on this for you. But there were people who were just absolutely atrocious in this campaign, spreading every lie, the 13-second sound bites. I've seen it all, and it's disgusting. If we as citizens have lost the ability to critique a man on his character, critique a man on what he has voted for, what we have proof that he has done, and instead we're relying on false information, falsehoods, and misinforming our fellow citizens in order to get somebody out, in order to prevent somebody from getting elected, it's a shameful thing. One of the founding fathers, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, said, "You elect the government that you deserve." And if we as citizens are lying, spreading false information, if we're going out and inherently twisting the right to vote from our fellow citizens in order to get our candidate in again, that's exactly who we're going to be electing. A man who has no conscience when it comes to spreading lies, to creating falsehoods, drawing the veil closed of representative government. The American people don't need to know this. They're not too educated. They're not informed enough to know what's going on. They shouldn't have to know. I don't trust them not to riot. I don't trust them not to get riled up about this. So it's better off for me just to not tell them. Is what comes from spreading those sound bites. It's what comes from spreading falsehoods instead of taking the time to look critically at our elected officials, those who are opposing them. I've seen people in this campaign talk about other people's wives of the candidates that somebody is opposing, saying sexually derogatory things, just absolute madness. I've seen people come out and say, well, this guy voted for this guy is this. we must rout him out. He must be a Republican. He must be a Democrat. The day that we as Americans come down on somebody that we don't even know for any reason aside from being the cult of whoever we support, the cult of this or that, what we believe, we take away the freedom from somebody else because we are mindlessly repeating the same drawings that the media has done for years. And whether you like him or you hate him, what I saw people doing to Matthew Lucci, spreading lies, spreading things, saying sexual things about his wife, it was no different than what I saw the Democrats, the progressives doing to Donald Trump in 2016, or once again in 2020, and probably once again in 2025 or 2024 when we have this election start heating up. Just wait, it'll come out. October, September, before November's election, it'll come out. If they can't take him off the ballot illegally in the court system, they're going to do it. Now, I think it's shameful when we start taking the tactics of those that we claim to be against and using them against our own party, against our own citizens, against people who have the choice to go out and vote. It's a mess. It's a shame. What I've seen in this election cycle was not only bad, it was good things too. I had the chance to help a handicapped woman out of her car, and I set down the pamphlets in Arlington. This was at the South Service Station. I had the chance to walk her up to the door. Had put aside what I was doing for politics and engaged with another citizen. And I had given her a pamphlet before she got in there, but the goal was not to get somebody to vote a certain way. I've had the greatest conversations, the greatest discussions with the average American in a job that I have started from the beginning doing for the sake of the American people. Those discussions, the empowerment I felt from other citizens telling me it's time for change, it's time, we're tired of seeing the way things are going, we're tired of this. Even if it wasn't the congressional race, there were people who were running for state house that told me the same thing. Many of you remember that I had endorsed Lyndon Laird. Lyndon Laird is a personal friend, and so is Helen Kerwin. Both of them were outstanding candidates. And I encourage everybody. Lyndon Laird endorsed her. Consider options that we have in this district. Look into Helen. She was a small business owner in Glen Rose, the first woman Republican elected to be the commissioner for Somerville County, somebody who was mayor, worked with city government for years. Look into Dwayne Burns. Before we go out and vote, I encourage everybody. This has never been more evident than when I ran for city council in the election that I've just gotten finished up helping out with. You can never know somebody's true character from the facade that they put up. We look at people who go to church with us, the people who live down the road from us. Some of them can be the worst people in the world. Some of them can be somebody who has raped somebody, a pedophile, and yet we're willing to shove everything aside and be friends with that person. Some of us unknowingly, some of us knowingly. We have candidates who took thousands and thousands of dollars from the firm that Jeffrey Epstein worked for. That's in the FEC documents. We have people who took money, gave money to certain folks, and yet we are so willing to judge other people. I encourage everybody in this country, everybody in our district, everybody in our state, before we start going after other people that mean well, that mean change, it's time that we started looking into how we analyze things ourselves. If we're the people who are still in the high school click mind phase where we go and endorse somebody. We go, "Oh, I'm friends with this person. I've known Bill Richardson for 50 years, and I know him to be an outstanding man. You should elect him again." Just because that is the case for us doesn't mean that's the case for everybody. The Bible says people are always friends with somebody who gives gifts, and that is no more clear than in politics. People will vote and tell you to go vote for somebody because they got a used car from them, because they were sold an outstanding futon bed or a pool table from that person. They've been over to that person's house. Some people have never even met this person, or are just dumbfounded. They're like enamored with this candidate. And but the good things that I saw were the people that were willing to embrace change. The people that went and voted for the person who I wasn't picketing or pamphleting for, they were willing to take it and look and read it and discuss it with me. And they didn't even have to go in there and vote for him. The day that we can get back as a country to being able to have those discussions without name calling, without hating another person, without belittling another person, without saying those remarks to other people, is the day that we can get back to civil politics in this country. The day that we as American citizens realize, just as this election has taught me, that you vote for the government that you deserve. It was very disappointing that my candidate didn't win, but I didn't hold it against anybody. I didn't come out and say, "Well, I guess your candidate won because he took money from this guy or that guy." I guess the gentleman who gave all this stuff to everybody, that he's been in there for 30, 40, 50 years. He's been in there for a decade and a half. We as humans are very emotional creatures. We can get very, very upset when we don't get what we want, when we don't get the candidate that we want. But when the majority of American citizens, we decide to look into other people, that we stop voting based on name, that we stop voting based on tenure length. A big thing was the concern that Matthew Lucci had raised. One thing that stuck with me, and that has stuck with many other people, James Buford ran on this as well, was we have these people that have been in there that might not even be establishment people. They might be financed, they might have connections, but who's not going to have connections and all that money when you end up getting into Congress and the nation's biggest pot of degradation, the biggest swamp on the face of the planet in Washington, D.C.? Who's not going to be associated with it in some way or another? Good people are not either not given the chance to be elected, or good people sit it out. And if the good people that get in there stay there, they're more prone to being influenced by that establishment. But Matthew Lucci ran on something that had stuck with me as a young person. We have a congressman who has gotten reelected now, who has not passed a bill into law since I think about 2014. It's about 10 years he's been in there, has only passed one bill. You can co-sponsor stuff, but that essentially is just a public statement saying you're going to vote for that bill. James Buford had run, unfortunately, didn't get to the runoff with Jake Elzy, but had come out and said, "Look, we have a guy that has been on Air Force One with Joe Biden. We have a guy who has been working and compromising. Why can't we have somebody that sticks it out to the establishment, doesn't toy around with them, doesn't fly around with them, doesn't tolerate, some of these things that are absolutely atrocious to this country?" And we as Americans, at least we can say that we had an option and we still voted for the same Yahoo again. And many people that have been electioneers, many people that have worked the polls, many people that are election judges, Tarrant County and Johnson County have some of the strictest uh, methods for counting those ballots that I've ever even heard of. The people that vote uh, don't understand all the intricacies. I had the privilege this election cycle to go inside of the sub courthouse down the road from UTA in Arlington. Had spent 15 minutes. I didn't even know if I was supposed to be in there, but I was talking to the gentleman, and he was informing me of the process of how they count the ballots, of how they do all this stuff. It's mind blowing to me as somebody who has voted, somebody who has ran for city council, but has never seen the inside of the security and the strictness that goes into these elections. So if we can rule out ballot fraud, if we can rule out foreign influence by using paper ballots, by using IDs, by using all these things that can be confirmed, then we have nobody to blame but ourselves for getting the same people elected in office for the next 40 years. So God bless you. We'll see you here in the second half of the show. Stick with us. Love to see you.
Let's be honest, wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair, the world's lightest wheelchair, is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Welcome back, Johnson County, to the second half of today's election reflection episode. Once again, before we get back to this, I'd like to say that Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the best ways to listen and watch. The station app, which I highly recommend, is also available for free on both Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store, check out our lineup and more at JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more are brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your local Texas sales rep at 844-839-4245. That's 844-839-4245. Be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. We also want to thank our outstanding sponsor, Lone Star Patriots, for financing the show, for being able to allow us to continue informing and educating our fellow Americans, one heart, one soul, one mind at a time, to make the best informed decisions for our republic. We're getting back to discussing the election, what I have learned, what I have experienced in the election. There were many outstanding candidates that I've had the privilege and the honor to meet. Lyndon Laird, Helen Kerwin, Pat Hardy, Brandon Hall. Many of these folks, some folks hate them, some folks really are adamant about them. But I think what was most encouraging to me was to get to know everybody and their opponents, because there were some outstanding people on both sides that we let petty rivalries, we let all this stuff get in the way of. But it was the ability to have those discussions with both sides and find something common that we agreed on that kind of invigorated my encouragement for the future of this country. A big thing that I also had noticed was the rivalry within the Republican Party itself. Now, many of you remember the episode where I had told you that I was running for Precinct 39 chairman for the county GOP here in Johnson County. The goal of this is not to step on any toes. The goal of this is not to make rivalries. But there were times in several counties in this district when we were doing the congressional tour that several folks had not set up a table for their opponent, their candidate's opponent, even though they were sure that he was going to win the primary. Many people did not set up a table. Many people refused to let him take questions. There were many people who had refused him the ability to get up and speak, who don't, quote unquote almost forgot. And there were folks who had not invited him to events, those sorts of things. And it was very concerning because even if you don't like somebody, we have set up this representative system to ensure that we have opposition. As James Madison had said, faction drives out faction in the Federalist Papers. The goal of this representative government, the way that the founders, many people are tired of the two-party system. Until we get a third option, the goal of this whole system was, and it still stays the same regardless of how many parties you add on, to have factions of people that vote for a candidate, that vote for a party. None of those people are ever going to have the same ideas. None of those people are ever going to come to a consensus on absolutely everything. But the goal is not to have that in this country. The goal was never to have a legislature that is fast-paced at putting out legislation at a rapid rate. If we did, I'd hate to see the shape that we'd be in by now. You know, the one or two decent senators that we still have, the one or two decent House members that have absolutely stood firm through their 40-year careers, who have not compromised, who have not done this, who have not done that, who have voted against bills. Many of you remember the defense allocations bill, the appropriations bill, which was a continuing resolution put on the House Speaker, Mr. Johnson's desk, and had enshrined in it the heart of the establishment, renewing funding for an illegal spy program for American citizens that the White House was doing through AT&T, as well as other name brand carriers. Many of us, as I had said then, I will say now, are quick to denounce our elected officials when they say, you know, I won't vote for this bill. Well, who are you to oppose funding for our National Guard or our national soldiers, sailors and airmen, the Marines? Who are you to oppose this? You ran on this. Maybe there are some people who oppose those things because they read 300 pages or they take the time to at least read half of them. And there's several things that they stick out like a sore thumb. But we don't get to have those discussions, so it's very good to look into it. If there's one thing that I can't expressly say enough, it's that we as citizens have to be educated. We can't just mindlessly go around pandering to the lowest common denominator, telling people you shouldn't vote for this guy because he's this or he's that. Many people are also hypocrites. They come out and say, well, they praised Ronald Reagan when he came over to the right. They praised Donald Trump when he stopped being a lifelong Democrat. A man should never have to explain his entire history, his entire finance record, his entire everything of his private life. The issue is we as citizens have stopped being able to look at progress, and I don't mean the ideology that has replaced the traditional aspect of this country with social Marxism. Progress in the sense of getting somebody new, having somebody new, being able to look at things a different way, being able to understand why I would want to vote for somebody else. Why? Instead of telling ourselves who we're going to vote for, I think the way that we should do it is ask ourselves, why should I continue to vote for this person? Why should X or Y earn my vote this election? Look into their finances, look into who they've endorsed, look into who has endorsed them. The gentleman who won the congressional election here in the 25th district, I was hard pressed to know, gave money to both Beto O'Rourke and Joe Biden. And those same folks who were like, well, this guy must be a Democrat because he's young, because he's this, because he's that, because he might have voted in the Democrat primary, didn't even look into the several thousands of dollars one other man who he was running against gave to Beto O'Rourke or Joe Biden. I'm going to pull it up here real quick for those who are gonna say that I am peddling falsehoods. It's on iVoter Guide. The 2024 iVoter Guide came out. This is just an election informative website about who has endorsed who has taken money from whom. Now, let's take a look here, because this is a point I really want to get across. It's not even about being Republican or Democrat at this point, but it's more so about making a point here. Now, let's see. Well, I'm going to post the link here. But trust me, it's there. The gentleman has taken money, given money. It'll list it out there. I'll put the link in the description. Liberal, given by candidate, received by candidates. Some of them were Joe Biden. Some of them were Beto O'Rourke. But the point here is you have a representative who is giving money to those candidates who everybody was coming out against his opponent, saying this guy must be a Democrat, this guy must be this. I've talked to numerous Republicans in this district, in this county. Many people have told me, in certain times where we need to look at both sides, we have encouraged our members, our voters, to go out, because this is an open primary state. And in moments of critical election, we have encouraged people to go out and vote in the Democrat primary. Now, the issue here is we have an open primary in the state where our parties, admittedly, if not inferably, encourage our own voters to go out and vote in another city, another county's primary for a different party. This happens all across the state. This happens all across every state that has open primaries. I guarantee you the Democrat Party will send people to the Republicans just like the Republicans send people to the Democrat primary. But there are also people who are swing voters, people in the Republican Party who don't stand up and toe the party line, and they vote for somebody else because they're a better option, or they believe something will get done under the other person. I was going to vote for Donald Trump this last election when I was 18. Didn't get the chance to because the line was too long and I had school all week. But I would have. I was a big Trumper when he ran the first time, when he ran the second time, but I started looking into the records. I started looking into things. There was a lot of things that Donald Trump had mentioned that never got done. One of the things was, and I don't know if we can ever find the interview again, but I'm going to see if I can find it. Because I think it was something that really hits the nail on the head. And that was Donald Trump. You can find the interview for yourself. I haven't seen it since the live broadcast that they did on CNBC here locally for it. Donald Trump comes out and says, I will get rid of the Federal Reserve. I want to see the money get printed under the Treasury Department again. And I thought, I really like that. Any man who wants to stick up to corporate bankers who credit this country instead of printing its currency under the guise and the true accountability to the American voter, to the administration instead of to the bankers, is somebody that I want to do that. It never got done under his first term when he had said, I support this. There's a lot of other stuff that didn't get done. There was just like there was a lot of stuff that even as incapable as we see him that Joe Biden didn't do. He's done a lot to run this country, but we haven't seen a lot in terms of what he has promised to do, unite this country and so forth and so on. Voting should never be about your party. It should never be about anything but what is morally right for this country. There are plenty of Republicans who do not toe the party line, who have gotten elected, who have not taken a formal stance on abortion or the border. There were Republicans who voted against the border wall. There were Democrats who voted for some of those things. The priority of the American people should be loyalty and unequivocal allegiance to this country, to what is right, to what is morally ethical, instead of standing up for the establishment. The gentleman that I had seen on an Instagram post just completely repeating everything that he learned in economics. He says, I have a master's in economics. The Federal Reserve is absolutely necessary, this and that. And you had people, average citizens, who didn't have that education, who might not have ever learned or read a book about it. They just watch the news every week, and they see that inflation now is on the rise again. It's due to go up another 3% again. And they say, well, the Federal Reserve was founded for this reason. Why are we continuously printing tens of trillions of dollars that we don't have backed up? Guy said, well, the Federal Reserve was founded to curb tail inflation and this and this and this and this. But that's not what we're seeing. So we have American citizens who have the best in mind for this country, for the district, for the state, that don't vote, or they stay out of voting altogether because they would rather not vote than be ridiculed for their choice or who they support. My friend Sean Goins, who was a 6-month co-host, he had to leave to go help be Matthew Lucci's campaign manager. His family was big on the Kennedys. His grandparents voted for John F. Kennedy. They voted for RFK in the Democrat primary when he ran. Before his assassination, God bless him. We showed a speech on here when Matthew Lucci came on about young people getting involved, about the ideas of this country. I couldn't find one thing that I hardly disagreed with on RFK Sr.'s speech. I think his son is an outstanding person. Any man that wants to bring in corporations on investigations, who wants to use the Department of Justice to inquisite those companies, who wants to bring in those things and investigate products, vaccines being a big one of them. And no, it wasn't about anything that they had done to say that vaccines are ineffective, vaccines are this. He wanted to bring him in to judge vaccine mandates and the unconstitutionality of them. He would like to bring those people in and investigate the side effects and do an actual scientific investigation with the federal government. Unlike the people who were under Trump and under Biden, the board members of the CDC were all bureaucrats, lobbyists, corporate members from Pfizer who had been off the board of directors, went and took the position, got their company a $100 billion contract, and then left and went back to the board of directors where they probably got their big $100 million payout. That is the reality of the country that we live in. Operation Warp Speed was plagued by those bureaucrats. Donald Trump's former commerce secretary, Wilbur Ross, was a member of the Rothschilds Bank in New York, the same Rothschilds that us conservatives are just adamantly against. Yet we'll sweep that to the side. This country is in a time where I hope that we've learned from the experiences where people my age have learned from being involved heavily in politics that it should never be about loyalty to a person, loyalty to a party, loyalty to a platform, but a loyalty to this country that has given us so much, and we take it for granted. We give so little in return. To the 95% of people who don't show up to a city council election, to the 80% that don't show up to a primary election, unless Donald Trump or somebody else is on the ballot, to the 100% of people that work in this country, but the probably 20% that get involved, that show up, that vote, that actually take the time to work on those campaigns. We have to get back in the spirit of Republican government. And I don't mean the party, I mean the representative government that we have set up. It's where only land-owning citizens in this country can vote. It's where only citizens of this country can vote. The worst things done in history were paved under the guise of righteousness, of doing the right thing. Some of the best, some of the worst people have used the image of greatness, the image of being the best person for the job, to do the most horrific, astonishing things. Look at Germany in the 40s. That guy was voted in. He was voted in. Some of the worst dictators in the world were voted in under some legal election that they did. The communists in North Korea, Vietnam were all elected. Why? Because the communists set up a government that they ensured only their candidates would ever win. We are at a place in this country where I hope everybody has kind of looked into this, wants to learn more, wants to do better. When we look at places like Nazi Germany, we look at places like the Soviet Union, where it was a one-party state, and all of those citizens said, this guy is like God himself. This guy is our Christ. We are doing God's will. By killing 6 million people? I don't think so. By killing 100 million people in the Great Famine in China? Or let's not forget the other 100 million people that died in China after the famine. Or look at Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Cuba, where all these people were sent to labor camps. Don't forget the tens of millions of people in the Soviet Union that were sent to gulags, labor camps. Loyalty in this country is a make or break thing. And there's no doubt about that. You can vote for some guy who looks the best but is the worst person, who does the worst things imaginable. Just like that thing that Madison Cawthorn was called out for by his colleagues when I believe it was a few years back, he was up for re-election and was talking about a coke-fueled orgy from congressmen. There was one of them that did that, and Madison Cawthorn unfortunately got caught in the heat of that. I don't remember the whole story, but I think he might have come out and spoke against it or something like that. And all of a sudden, a big donation appeared in his opponent's pocketbook, and he got thrown out. The guy in the wheelchair that served this country with dignity, for the most part, we don't know what he did in private, just like we don't know what Roger Williams or whoever does in their private life. I don't think I want to know. I don't think I want to be the person that learns everything. And I'm sure God doesn't even want to be that person because there's things that he sees behind the curtain that he is just appalled at. Billy Graham said a quote many years back. If God doesn't judge the United States, then he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. I think it'd be hard for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah to imagine a world where sex is so open on the internet, where our congressmen do it, where two people can do it in the butt in a Senate chamber. That happened. And our society is just lax with it. I tell my grandma all the time when we're on the phone, she goes, well, who's to blame for all these things that happen? What can we do? And I said, well, we, the voters, are responsible for this. We as Christians are responsible for letting this happen because we don't stand up to begin with. And this is nothing about nationalism. This is nothing about pushing religion. But there is absolutely nothing right in anybody's eyes. There shouldn't be. With having sex in a chamber where some of our most distinguished representatives has stood up and taken up for the Constitution and filibustered against illegal acts. And we watch this happen and there's no accountability. Where a gentleman takes 10% of the profit from a deal in another country, where we have 20 different buildings set up to look at biological agents. Or, for instance, China. All these people that make money off this. The people that insider trade like Nancy and Paul Pelosi. If we're so adamantly against that, why are we so adamantly opposed to giving somebody else who's different, who doesn't have ties to the establishment, a chance at change? Like John F. Kennedy said, the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. Why do we have a problem passing the torch? A new generation got into the presidency and he got killed, and we all of a sudden, the next 10 presidents that we elected after him were all from the same generation that came before him. For being a country where we praise democracy, we praise Republican principles, we praise the Constitution, we praise all of these things, inclusivity, even one of them. The problem for my generation, this DEI stuff that people have a problem with, civil rights, all these things that we say that we champion. But as soon as old young John gets out, let's just put the same people in. Let's just vote for the same people because they've got experience. They've got 40 years experience. They've got all this stuff. God, 12 years in the House. Wow. Doesn't mean that you're the best guy for the job. It doesn't even entitle you to wash the congressional toilet. We have people that take money from child predators, from rapists, from a man who raped a special needs girl on the board of directors. This is what I have a problem with, too, is many people, even in Roger Williams' campaign staff, said, well, we haven't taken donations from the company. We took donations from people that were a member or an employee of the company. So you're telling me your board of directors knew that your elite staff were doing this to special needs kids, trafficking children, and yet you still allowed it? You're taking money from the people that knowingly allowed it and thereby are accomplices of that. There are hundreds of thousands of people taking money from them in this country, and it sickens me. It's not just them, but it's also the other people that they take money from. All the people that want to get stuff in return. People say, we need a businessman to be president. This country should be run like a business. So you want your country to be able to qualify for bankruptcy, for dissolving its assets, for crippling the economy? Those guys at the top get a payout whether we win or we lose. Why would anybody ever want this country to be run like a business? Why? It's something I struggle to figure out myself. But we'll save all that for another day. I thank you for joining us today, for listening to the little bits of rants that I've had, the reflections on this election. And I want to pray for this country. Our country is in a pit that we may never climb out of without the help of the person who created it and gave our founders those ideas to begin with. God bless you. Let freedom ring, and may the blood of Christ wash over this government. We desperately need it. Thank you.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.